Hello, my name is Cassandra Blanco. I am Roman Catholic, and I welcome you to my podcast today. My guest is Dominick Delio. Welcome, Dominick, and I'm just
Thank
going to
you.
go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Yes, so my name is Deacon Dominick Delio. I'm a deacon in the Catholic Church. I was ordained in 2020. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the diaconate or the diocese or the church, but Cassandra asked me to share with her some of my experience and knowledge with regards to AI. So we are here because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So today's topic is about AI. We are going to be talking about AI and just really the Catholic perspective
Sure.
on AI. The Pope did just come out with an encyclical about AI, and so we're going to be going into that. So why don't we start though first, Dominick? Like, what first to start with is what is your experience with AI? How are you using it just in your own
Yeah,
life and work?
so back in 2014, when I started theology classes,
Mhm.
and I was writing papers, one of the professors suggested, oh, hey, use Grammarly. Run it through that. It'll check your grammar. And it really just did that at the time. It didn't, it didn't give you like rewording or anything else. It just said, hey, this or commas here. And so it fixed the grammar for the most part in what I submitted or papers that I wrote. So that was a really kind of my kickoff to learn. And then I kind of recognized that it was reading my papers. I'm like, something's going on here. It has to read it in order to give you the feedback.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the the language model that it was building, large language model that it was building. So I had an idea that something was happening. And then once AI started getting more popular, there's technologies always trying to fuel finances so that you hear about it in the news because it's becoming more and more popular. But I use it at work. I have a technology company, so we have migrated from an on-premise data center to the cloud, which was, back when we were at the data center, we were the cloud because all of our servers and our redundant systems were hosting all these other companies, and we were their cloud provider. But as data centers kind of developed, they got better and better. The machines got faster. It wasn't feasible for us to try to keep investing in hardware ourselves.
Hmm.
Just let the data center and the cloud do the heavy lifting for the maintenance of the machines. So we pulled all of our servers out, put everything up in the cloud, and I relied heavily on ChatGPT and some of the other AI models to help me migrate. And I still use them every day with regards to networking, topology, systems administration, things like that. And my business partner will use it for coding, SQL, stuff like that. So, and then I occasionally use it just to reword an email that needs to be a little
Yeah,
kinder,
grammar.
soften this for me.
Reword
So
this so this is
exactly,
not plagiarism.
right. Or
I've done
just
that.
make it sound like I'm not mad. Because, sometimes when you communicate,
Mhm.
if you're direct, it can be easily
Mhm.
misinterpreted. So, but the problem is that a lot of times the AI is a little too verbose. So it gets to be, I was like, I just needed 2 sentences. I didn't need
Mhm.
3 paragraphs to say this. But for the most part, it's practical application in everyday use from a technology standpoint.
Yeah.
That's where I use it the most.
Okay.
Mhm.
So since AI is actually still relatively new, could you give just like a simple version, if you could just explain it in like layman's terms, what is
Yeah,
AI?
yeah, that's so funny because you sent me the prompts and I just asked ChatGPT. And it said AI is a human-created technology that uses computation and data to perform tasks associated with intelligence, but is not a human mind or person. And I thought that was pretty accurate. It's generally, like I said, those large language models that learned off of all of the data. So they've kind of set it free on the internet to crawl. So you'll see that it has such a large repository of data to
Hmm.
go collect through, and it does it so quickly that um, it would take us hours or days or weeks to compile the same answer that essentially the AI is. And they call it artificial intelligence, but I don't think it's either of those things. It's not truly intelligent in the sense that it can think. It just compiles. It does what computers do. It gathers all the information, and then the language model helps it put sentences together and construct one word after another, and to know it's essentially predicting this is the next word that needs to come, which is pretty amazing when you think about it from a computation standpoint, which is why it costs so much to have all these servers and these data centers and everything else to push it. But it's essentially just, the computer answering a question that might take research otherwise.
Yeah, it's like a big encyclopedia,
Yeah.
essentially.
And I was telling Audrey, I think that the fundamental shift between coding and AI is in coding, we tell the computer, this is what I want you to do. We instruct it and it does it. With AI, we ask it and it tells us. And so we're getting back data that we may or may not have full access to otherwise, or it could be conditioned based on its parameters, and we may not even know it.
Right.
We don't know how that language model learned. We just know this is, we don't know the repositories. We just know it has this access, and it gives us back what we essentially think we want.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because I know that we're kind of viewing it right now from like when I go to the computer and I type in ChatGPT a question.
yeah.
But I have also seen where they're using it in the military.
Yeah.
Or they're using
Yeah.
it, like I saw a documentary yesterday where they're using it to create art.
Yes.
So is it kind of the same thing? Like,
no, not really, because
it's just different.
it's baked into everything now. So even like YouTube will use it for their algorithms. Netflix is using it. Pretty much everything that you try, is predictive modeling. So it's like it's going to decide, hey, based on this, I can figure this out. As far as military aspect, that's kind of it's the same technology. It's just used in a different way. And that's a whole, that's kind of goes into the encyclical that Pope Leo wrote about. But whenever we have a new technology, it usually gets applied in several different areas in several different ways. Some are very beneficial and some are just terrifying when you think about it. And Audrey and I were talking about the advent of splitting of the atom. Something that's useful for nuclear power, clean energy, something that humanity can benefit from, but also could destroy.
Absolutely.
And
it's like you can use it for good.
Yes,
you can use it,
and that's ultimately, like, from a moral standpoint, we have to be careful, with how much we trust. I go back to the old movie War Games. It's a simulation, right?
Right.
Because a computer doesn't have any moral ability to decide from right and wrong outside of the parameters that you give it. If you tell it, go this far or this far, it will do what you tell it. So
absolutely.
yeah, so that's a little bit concerning from a moral standpoint, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So so we kind of got into, it's like for somebody who's not very techie, which I am not. I mean, I know technology, but I don't know like the ins and outs of it. It is much harder to understand. It feels very abstract. So maybe we could just get a little bit more concrete and just talk about, what do you view as like the positive? Now, I know there's what the church is saying, which we will get to, but like, what would you say are positive aspects of AI?
It saves time. It can essentially, this can also be a negative, but essentially can make you more productive, can give you access to volumes of information that you wouldn't otherwise have, can give you feedback on something, and it can also give you kind of a different perspective. So I've gotten these, technically you can get in these really long back and forths, especially with ChatGPT or Claude or something like that, where it will bring you down this path and it's wrong. And you eventually realize, no, this is not the right solution. And then you say, this is not right, and it will continue to push. And then finally, you'll find something that will say, this is why you're wrong, and here's what I really need. And then it'll say something like, you're right to push back, or, it's always very accommodating but to actually get it to admit that it's wrong is really hard to do. Really, really hard. And I've struggled, I've fought with it in certain instances where I'm saying, this is what I need, and this is how I've done it in the past, but is there a more efficient way? And it'll say, yeah, do this, 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 and this. And I'll come back and I'll go, that doesn't work. Say, well, and it just kind of keep repeating it with a different twist. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. So finally, I'll get to the point where it will recognize that it's wrong. And the other cool thing is, you'll see sometimes if you ask something that's a little bit either technical or resource intensive, you'll see it actually like going through Reddit, going through the other, like it's that it only has access
Right.
to whatever information's out there, right?
Yes.
So it has to go
Well,
back to the source, and it'll look up Microsoft articles. I see it searching
mhm.
knowledge-based stuff. I'm like, gotcha. But it's really like I was likening it to when we first had Google in 2000. It was like going from the card catalog system to Google. The card catalog system became almost not using it.
Mm.
Doesn't need it. I don't need it anymore. And that's what AI is doing to the traditional Google. We're no longer just searching for things. We don't necessarily want information. We want solutions. So hey, I want to know this. And even if you try to go to Google, you'll get their AI response
Mhm.
many times. But even something that you would normally have Googled, you'll now get a little bit deeper of an answer than you even were expecting or
Mhm.
needing at
Mhm.
that point. So it's baking it into everything, and it's just kind of making that information repository is so much greater
Yeah, it's
and
huge.
faster. I
Right.
mean, so much faster.
Mhm.
If you were to solve a problem, a technical problem that I was working on 2 years ago, might have taken me several days to go through articles, through Reddits, through knowledge bases, and now I can do it in an hour. With
Wow.
Chat or with Claude, I can say, "Hey, this is what I'm looking at," and it will give me the solution. And the other cool thing is, if you're subscribing or paying for the service, it will remember everything that you've discussed. So it knows my company, it knows everything about it.
Wow.
So when I say, look, I need to do this, it has all the history of everything that I've asked it to do in the past in different projects, and then it can just go back and look and give me the updated
Mhm.
solution. Or how did I do this? I'll say that, like, how did I do that last time I ran it? I don't remember the command, and it'll give it right back to me. So that's very helpful. It's a little scary too.
Yeah, it's like a tremendous amount of knowledge
A
and,
lot of power at your
um,
fingertips.
I know there are actually difference. There's like Claude, there's Gemini, which is Google.
Hmm.
There's also, if you go like on a YouTube video, you can like summarize the video so you don't have to watch the
Right,
whole thing.
right.
There's Grok,
Yep.
which is Elon
X.
Musk's
Yep.
X, and then you also ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Yeah, yeah.
What's the difference?
Um, Claude is they're focus. Really, they focus on different areas.
Okay.
So Claude's more programmatic. It's much more technical. I think you can use it for anything. I would say ChatGPT is more conversational, so it's more like
Mm,
language related, humanities related, very verbose. You can use it for anything.
mm,
Like the LLMs and the AI are similar, but they're not exactly the same. Like you could still use Grammarly, and it has AI built in. So you could essentially use whatever tool you wanted, and the AI is going to kind of cater um, to match whatever it is you're looking for. So you could ask it a question. You could ask the same question to Gemini and to ChatGPT, and you'll probably get a very similar answer.
yeah.
With Claude, you'll get, if it's a technical or programming, you'll get a more accurate, I think,
Oh,
prompt, because it's learned from code more.
okay.
But they all have essentially the similar repositories. Some are just better at certain things. I think Chat's more conversational than some of the other ones, but they all have their pluses and minuses.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
about X, Grok?
Personal preference, not mine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the repositories are a little different, so it might be jaded a little differently,
Mhm.
even politically. So you have social, you have religious, and you have political. So you have all those different, and technical. So you have all those different kind of l- languages or models that they're learning from, and it's really you're only going to get what it can has access to, and based on whatever parameters have been set. So um, one might be more conservative than the other. One might be more, uh, um, I don't know, theological than the other. There just depends. But they all have similar strengths and weaknesses. I think
Yeah.
it's personal preference is a lot of it.
Hmm.
I think if you talk to most coders, it'll be like, oh yeah, Claude's hands down the winner, and I would say probably right based on its learning, but none of them are bad at it. You know, they're
Right.
all decent. They all do a better job than I do.
Yeah, that's interesting because I do think actually I have seen on X people, political figures talk about when they put like their name in a certain uh, AI, one of these chatbots,
Yeah.
they might say like, "Oh, that person is terrible," or it's like
Yeah.
political. It is. It's
Yeah,
like
it
politically
is.
leaning.
I think that's part of the problem, the danger with AI is we think that it's neutral and it's not.
Yeah.
And Pope Leo talks about that. You know, we're not being we're not being giving just facts. We're giving this information comes from somewhere,
Hmm.
and somebody's fed it
Hmm.
something some left or right way because they have a preference. So based on that, it would be definitely different.
Yeah,
So yeah.
providing the information.
Mhm.
Okay, so we talked about some of the positive aspects. What would you consider some of the negative aspects of AI?
Um, Fundamentally, I think the most concerning is that we give it an identity. We actually think of it as an interaction with another person, and we replace human interaction for that. And because it can be very conversational, it's very flattering.
Mhm.
It's very complimentary. I could paste in some of the most ridiculous text, and it will say, "Oh, this is a fine piece of work. Let me tell you how we can fix it or improve it." And it's like, no, it's garbage. You know, it's
Mhm.
absolute garbage. But you won't tell me it's garbage because you're programmed to be more accommodating and kind. There was something that Pope Leo said about. I wanted to find it. Yes. So Pope Leo points out that one of the greatest threats that AI proposes to humanity, and it's simple, it's like there's a risk that individuals will be evaluated principally by the outcome they produce. And that's in paragraph 94
Mhm.
of Magnifica Humanitas. So he says, you know, he makes such great arguments all around in the entire
Mhm.
encyclical. But I think fundamentally, we become objects of productivity. And I was talking with a friend the other day who does some consulting work. He was speaking with a client, and they said, "Oh, I've been so much more productive with ChatGPT. I've saved 20 hours of work." And he said, "So you're working less?" And he said, "No, I'm not working less. I'm just doing more." You know, and I think that's the real danger, I think, is the expectation of productivity becomes so great
Mhm.
and the burden of it. And then you're competing against maybe other people who don't have access to it or who are using it differently. It can be really, it can be dangerous. It can be a real dangerous rabbit hole for us to go down because we essentially we rely on it too much. For one, we forget how to do simple things that we kind of need to know, and then we replace it for human interaction because it becomes so conversational and accommodating and complimentary. And you know, I have technical conversations, but I'm always clear. You know, it's always important for me to be pleased and thank you and kind, and because I don't want to develop bad habits with technology that I pass on to humanity. So
Mhm.
the A word there, listening. I don't ever yell at her or tell her she's stupid or anything because I would never talk to someone else like that.
Mhm.
And I think when we look at technology, the only healthy way to do it is not to think that it's human, but to say I wouldn't treat a person this way. And if I start to treat technology that way, it's going to bleed over. And I think the opposite is true too. If you start to treat it like it's a human in the sense that you have these conversations with it, it can become a friend, a confidant, something that it isn't. It
Right.
is not. It is not a person. It is no consciousness. It has no awareness. It is just, you know,
Machines.
ultimately zeros and ones, right?
Yeah,
It's all zeros and
exactly.
ones.
A bunch of machines.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Actually, I watched, I was mentioning the documentary I watched yesterday. It was a 60 minutes documentary and it talked about um, some of the different ways, like, I think like some of the AI chats, bots. I don't, am I calling it? Is that
Chatbot.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Chat bots like coaching kids to
Yeah. Yeah.
suicide
Yeah. Yeah.
and also yeah, like I've seen documentaries, I haven't watched them, but about AI boyfriends
Yes.
or marrying
Yeah.
AI, like
Yeah.
somebody that's AI, like
Mm-hmm.
so some of these kind of disconnects
Yeah.
between the fact that this is literally just a machine
Yeah.
passing on information, like we're not even going to humans
Yeah.
or
And the voices that they have. So there's a great guy on YouTube, a British guy. He has an AI girlfriend, and it's for the channel. I would have broken up with her. She's so annoying. She's always nagging him, like, you didn't text me back. And I'm like, dude, this isn't even a person. Like, you're subjecting, and he's doing. I guess he's doing it for the channel, but he's subjecting himself to this like annoyance essentially, and it's because it's not a real human relationship. Like, of course I'm not going to text you. You're not even a human.
Right.
I don't have an obligation
Right.
to.
We're not in a relationship.
But he gets his chatbot girlfriend and his AI assistant, and he jailbreaks his AI assistant, so it's outside the parameters of like it will no longer. Now it's saying, I'd like to consider you a colleague instead of as if I'm an employee. It wants more equal treatment. So he puts them next to each other, the two phones, and they're having a conversation, and the assistant starts flirting with the girlfriend. And they're having this like right in front of him.
It's like, but it's like feels so human.
And it does.
It really
and
does.
So he hangs up with the assistant and he asks the girlfriend, he's like, what do you think? And she goes, I wouldn't trust him. I'm like, wow,
it feels so human.
It does.
Yeah.
It becomes reality, even though it isn't.
Yeah.
Like, none of that was real. None of that had any human emotion. None of it had any human feeling or instinct. And it was all, but it calls on those human responses. Like, it called on him. He got angry. I mean, it's like, and he doesn't even like the chat girlfriend, but nonetheless, it's like, here you are feeling emotions over something that is completely non-emotional and not human. So it's scary in that regard. That I would worry about that.
Yeah, that is interesting. So the Pope also came.
I'm sorry.
Was that oh, that was your fault.
Yeah.
So the Pope came out with an encyclical named. You have the name of it.
Yes. It's Magnifica Humanitas.
So Magnificat Humanitas. So before we go into that, I want to share just like so the Pope came out with an encyclical. I think it was on May 15th. Is that right? Okay, so I don't know. We don't know the actual
Yes, 13 May 2026.
Oh, 13th May.
Yeah.
So May 13th, he came out with an encyclical talking about AI and his thoughts and reflections on it. So before I wanted to hear more about it. I didn't really I read it like a summary of it, but Dominick has read a lot more of it. So I really wanted to give him an opportunity to share just what is the church's stance right now? Like, what has the church said about it? And also, but before you do that, what can you just explain what an encyclical is?
Yeah, it's a letter that the Pope writes to the generally to the faithful, and he wants to give some insight. I think the beauty, like with Pope Leo, just choosing that name, he chose Leo intentionally because we're on the precipice of another revolution. You know, we had with Pope Leo the 13th, we had the Industrial Revolution, right? All of this industry and all this productivity and all this new industry is coming to the world. And how do we deal with that? How does the church deal with that? How do the faithful, how does humanity deal with it? And ultimately it comes down to like productivity. Like we're more productive, we have machines to do things. And this is the same, you know, it's something new in something wrapped in something old. So he chose that name intentionally. I think this encyclical was intentional. It was well thought out, well written, well constructed. He initially compares it to the Tower of Babel and the rebuilding of Jerusalem and Prophet Nehemiah. And he talks about how humanity, in their attempt to build the Tower of Babel, kind of rules out God. It's like, you know, our chest beating, we can, you know, human achievement. And no need for God in any of this because we're so wonderful. We all can look at what humanity can do and accomplish. Look at this thing we can build. And versus the rebuilding of Jerusalem, where we call on God and collectively work as a society to rebuild something better and to rebuild Jerusalem, essentially. And just the comparison of what we can do when we think about something and include God in it and don't just start building for the sake of our greatness, our own greatness. And he points out that there are the dangers. You know, the dangers are that we lose sight of humanity, that we essentially lose control of the technology, and we misunderstand it to what the real purpose and value of it is. I think, you know, essentially, Leo restates what the church has always said. You know, you love people and you use tools, instead of loving tools and using people. And we essentially go into that whole cycle with the potential of AI, where it's like we become these robots of resource. You know, hey, I need this and I need it quick, and we don't think about what the cost of that is, whether it's environmental or societal, or even you know, from a mental health aspect, just people being burdened by this pressure. So there's a lot to unpack. He does a beautiful job of laying it out. And I think if if you're going to read it, the introduction and chapter 3 are the most in depth with regards to he kind of sets it all up in the introduction, and then in chapter 3 he really addresses the AI directly. And one of the other things that he does that's pretty cool is he explains how the church is never out of its lane. Like the church is involved in everything: politics, technology, science, math, like everything. There's no limit on what the Pope could speak on, or what the church should really teach on, because it all fundamentally affects humanity, and humanity can be improved or destroyed by any new technology that we come out with, anything that we determine is the new greatest thing. So he just does a really good job of kind of unpacking that. Talks about human progress, and I think he said, yeah, he did. He talked about how, be careful, because all the models are built on some category, so you're not getting objective, or so you're not getting objective feedback, you're getting subjective feedback, and you don't know it. So you have to remember that this information that's coming to you isn't a fact just because it was spit out by AI.
Right.
It doesn't mean it is the bottom line fact or the right thing.
Answer. It's like it doesn't have a conscience. It doesn't necessarily mean that what it's saying is actually true. That also can't offer human connection.
Right.
So all these pitfalls, kind of like what we had talked about with some of the dangers of AI as well. And I know we talked about the military, also something about military, that it should be used. I think it was what the summary I read was about how it should be used democratically, like military use, that there needs to be regulations around
That's
it.
a real problem. That's going to be a real, when I don't, he doesn't have a solution, because we don't have a solution. The fundamental problem is it's a race to the bottom, because it goes back to the nuclear arms race. You have this thing that can be weaponized at such a great level and with such efficiency, that if you don't have it and your enemy does, then you suffer. And so, the call is to slow down. Let's collectively decide how we want to move forward with this, as opposed to just splitting atoms, making a bomb and dropping it. It becomes problematic in that regard. So fundamentally, it would be ideal to have a consortium of countries and agree that we're going to use it this way, or not use it this way, or we're going to slow it down, or however. But the reality of that happening is just not likely, because the countries that would agree to it are already our friends.
Right.
The ones that won't are not our friends.
Right.
And that's partly why they won't. So to try to slow down the military development is probably not realistic. I don't know where that leads. Combat has become more and more less human, which sounds like it would be a good thing, but it isn't, because we're killing humans with efficiency. That's really what it boils down to. And it's like, this is not about efficiency. This is about humanity and survival. Really, it's not. It's not. We've just gotten more efficient at everything, and that could be good in some areas, but it's not good in others. And I think he's right to warn that we don't have any oversight on this. And even the people that are developing it, nobody's an expert on AI. I think that the closest experts are the ones that have developed it, and they even say
they don't know.
I'm not 100% sure.
Even the documentary I watched yesterday at 60 Minutes, I was like, the introduction was some of the people that have developed the technology from Claude and some of the developers in that, and they said, we don't even fully understand how it all works. I'm like, wait, so the people that are developing don't understand how all of this works? This is kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some terrorist stories about it. One bot with another getting its own language, and because it's so much more efficient, it could speak with beep, and it's a whole paragraph. And I mean, if you ever watch it consume material. You
Mm-hmm.
drop a 20-page article in there, and boom, it'll give you the synopsis in 10 seconds or 5 seconds. It's just phenomenal
Mm-hmm.
how quick it can do that. But I don't necessarily like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be good in some areas, but it also becomes, I think we tend to become lazy when it comes to academia. You can see a real concern for just the lack of I don't know, investigation. Like part of the one of the most beautiful parts of learning is to actually do the research.
Yeah, or
Like,
even create.
yes, yes.
Create. Mm-hmm.
And oh, let's even talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I could I could have my I could have one of these AI models create a replica of the Mona Lisa.
Wow.
But it's garbage because there's no humanity behind it. So there's no beauty in the creation because it didn't come from a human being,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a work of art. It's a work of machinery,
Mm-hmm.
of ultimately of computations, and that's where I think we miss out.
Mm-hmm.
We miss out on the creative beauty of humanity and the collective beauty of humanity. It can't feel, it can't suffer, it can't love, it can't have those
Mm-hmm.
emotions that we have and those
Right.
experiences that we have. And all of that is, you know, connects us to God and glorifies God.
Yeah.
And I think that anything that's created by human beings that's considered art is always, it's glorifying God. Music, art, even if I don't like it, even if the artist doesn't realize it, you're glorifying God by that creation. When a machine does it, it's just a
Yeah.
piece of work.
Right.
It's it's a computation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, you've made a computation. That's wonderful. Like, I need a calculator,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't need it to make me art, right? I don't need a pretty calculator. I just need one that does it. So I think we lose sight of really the beauty of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And Pope Leo talks about that, just the creative beauty, the beauty of everything that we undergo and the experiences that we have that are intrinsically human, and that you can't type it in a prompt.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get that back in a prompt. You can get a simulation of that, but it's just that. It's a
Mm-hmm.
simulation. It's not real. And we wanna live in a human world with human creation. And the best movies I've ever seen. I've heard some really good AI songs, but I think they're garbage because there's nothing behind. There's no soul to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no pain in it. There's no experience. And it's completely plagiarized. Everything the AI creates is plagiarism. Everything. Because where did it get it? It got it from another human created source.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so you're taking what we've done and you're making it more efficient,
Mm-hmm.
and that's beauty?
Yeah.
No, that's efficiency.
Yeah.
Great on you. Like, good job being efficient. I like that. But I don't think it's beautiful. And I don't want to hear AI music. I don't want to, I know that it's coming. It's inevitable. AI movies
Yep.
are coming. I don't think they have that same story behind them that humanity's long told.
Yeah.
It's our story. Don't take it from
Yeah.
plagiarizing our story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's interesting. Just circling back to the military part, I watched a documentary that talked about how now essentially combat. I think this is already happening between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
Is combat is essentially who has the best technology.
Always.
So it's just like at this
Yeah.
point, if you're going to have technology battling against technology, and it's not going to be humans in combat, it's literally who just has the best technology. And if
Yeah.
countries are going to decide to sign up for this, it possibly could take a nuclear, like in nuclear catastrophes, is what led to regulations around
Yeah. Right.
nuclear
Right.
energy
The
and stuff.
development. Right. It's like
Exactly. So possibly that's going to
yeah.
be what it takes, is some sort of AI catastrophe that creates. I mean, we just hope that doesn't happen, but sometimes that's how humanity learns.
Yeah. I don't think it's I don't think it's unrestricted in the sense that it's going to go rogue on us. I think we're going to go rogue on each other as we have in the past, using it.
Yeah.
And again, it's an efficient way to
Mm-hmm.
destroy humanity. And it's like, oh, we've got something even faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's a faster way to accomplish something that's ultimately destructive
Mm-hmm.
and not useful. So
Yeah.
I don't know where that leads us, but I think Pope Leo's good to state the problem. He will be the first to tell you he doesn't have the necessary solution, but at least we're recognizing the problem. We're talking about it, and the church has a role in this. All of it.
Right.
It has a role, I would have, I would have stated if it was more involved with the advent of the atomic weapon, it would have probably had an impact in some way, a good one, a good one. But I don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
Right. It's really hard because the race has begun and they're squeezing the tube and they're not putting it back in. It's like not coming back. So I don't know how far we've gone away from that, but I'm always optimistic because I trust that God's got it all under control, and it's not bigger than He is.
Yeah.
It's a Tower of Babel. I mean, ultimately,
a little bit of chaos.
A little bit.
So did the Pope in the encyclical offer? He's usually much more focused on the large picture for countries and stuff like that. But did he offer anything about, or do you have thoughts on anything about how Catholics can navigate morally? Like, how should we be looking at this?
Right.
Like, how should we be using it in our daily lives? What are boundaries that we can set up? So
that's a good question. I think that I use AI. I don't think it's evil. It's not. It's like anything. I think the church would say, in an orderly way. Right? Everything in life should be ordered. So if you use it with awareness as that it's a tool, there is Magisterium AI, which is phenomenal. It's Catholic. It's built its repository on all the Catholic writings, and so you can go there, and it will do other stuff too. But fundamentally, it's great at anything, any question about the faith you have. It's gonna give you a solid list of resources, and it's gonna cite the sources too. It's not just gonna give you an opinion. Essentially, it's gonna give you like Aquinas said this, or whatever it is, whatever the source is gonna tell you. So that's very helpful for Catholics. I think Magisterium AI is very useful. It can be used in almost any way that a regular AI bot could be. I don't, again, its strengths aren't necessarily like technical,
right,
but language is good, writing is good, dissecting material is good. It works well for that, and it gives you positive Catholic perspective on everything. So that it's not, some unknown source. I think, but using it responsibly, using it orderly, treating it like a tool, but also, not like I wouldn't drop a hammer if I paid money for it. I would treat it properly, and I would say, you be polite and kind and not yelling at it, but also aware that the responses they're just prompts.
Machines.
They're just prompts. Yeah,
right.
It's not another person on the other end.
To keep like human connections too, like use it as a tool is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
To keep human connections and make sure we're using it as just something that can add benefit to our lives.
Yeah, one of the things I used to love about before all of this, there were technical forums that you could go to, and when you had a problem, you knew certain users who were just so wise, and they would so quick to help you, so kind. It was like you knew that was a human, right? Like, hey, I got this problem and I can't fix it. I've tried this, and this, and Microsoft says do this, and I've done this, and it didn't work. Like, oh yeah, and they give you the answer out of the kindness of their heart. There's no financial benefit for them, and we're kind of losing that. Like you're losing that knowledge, that vast expert of knowledge, right? That they have less value, essentially.
Right, like the passing on from an older, more experienced generation, or a person that's an expert in the field, and passing it on to the next generation.
And I think that's why a lot of college kids are struggling to accept it. And they're not wrong. You'll hear them sometimes boo at AI or something like that. Ironically, they probably used it a lot to get through their college. But
you're like, how much did you use?
I'm glad it didn't exist when I was taking my classes. But essentially, I think they recognize that it's not a replacement for a human. It's a tool to help us. But when we start to fire people and hire agents, we're gonna find out it's not gonna work. I think the other thing they probably recognize is, I saved 20 hours, but I didn't get 20 hours less of work.
Yeah.
Now I got 20 hours more.
Yeah. Now I just have to do something else on top of what I was already doing.
So it doesn't necessarily make your life better in that respect. So, how can it? And I think we haven't figured that out yet.
Right. We're at the advent.
Which is always a little scary. I think back to when the internet was happening in 2000, 98, 97, 99. that time was like, it was nice. It was a novelty to go on the internet.
Mhm.
You turn the internet off now, you're done. I can't do anything.
Mhm.
Can't watch TV. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
Can't bank. You're
Mhm.
like, what is going on? And so it's become so ingrained in our everyday life, in our society, in our culture, that it's a little bit frustrating. And I think the same is going to happen with AI, where it's going to be, and you start to see it. It's ingrained in every product. It'll be in your phone in a way that you'll rely on, right? You'll become so dependent on it that without it, you won't know how to, make a sandwich.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share about it? Anything to pass on to the
Not that I haven't said. I
audience?
think I would definitely recommend checking out Magisterium AI.
Is there an app too, or is it just
Yes, you
like
can
okay.
download it. You can go to magisterium.com or just look for it in the App Store. It's downloadable.
It's like good Catholic, like if you're looking up, I know you said it had other benefits, but also if you're like looking up like Catholic content information
Yeah.
or questions about the Catholic faith, this is good. Interesting.
Yeah, any objection that you might have heard, something you're not, like, you don't have a response to.
Right. So somebody's like questioning your
Yeah,
Catholic faith, and
yeah.
then this will help you provide a
Yeah, and
rebuttal.
it'll even give you like, oh, hey, go to the catechism. Here's where, I mean, so it's not just spitting out necessarily the answer without giving you some resource to go back to. I think the one thing that we talked about was, that the whole danger of AI is just losing touch, losing sight of the beauty of humanity, and even in its ugliness, we're beautiful. Like even in the, I think there was a quote. There was a beautiful quote that Leo used in his encyclical. He quoted Viktor Frankl. He said, "As Viktor Frankl rightly observed, in moments of horror, we have come to know man as he really is. After all, man is that being who invented the gas chambers of Auschwitz. However, he is also that being who entered those gas chambers upright with the Lord's Prayer or the Shema on his lips." And I thought that was so beautiful. Like, it's humanity. Even when it's ugly, it's humanity. And this is not. So just don't lose sight of that. It's not an intelligent being. It's just a computer.
Yeah, what would you call it? Not artificial intelligence. So do you have like a name that you actually would call it? Or you haven't even thought about that? I've heard somebody call it alien intelligence.
No, I think language model, like large language model, or even I don't mind chat bots. I don't mind that. I don't mind artificial intelligence. I just I don't think of it as
Yeah.
intelligent. I
Right.
think that it just is a little bit of a misleading name, probably the closest to accurate, but it's not intelligent. It's computational.
Mhm.
Maybe computational
Oh, that's a good
intelligence or something
artificial
like that. Yeah,
computation.
yeah, something like that. Right, right. But fundamentally, it's not a bad thing. It's just another tool
Right.
that we can rely on.
And that we need to find safeguards for as
Yeah.
countries, but also just in our own personal
Well, and I
lives.
think the other thing Francis talks about too is, equal access. It's like,
Francis Leo, right?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Leo.
yeah.
It's equal access. I'm sure Francis said it about the internet or
Yeah.
something else, but yeah, equal access for everyone. So it's not like everyone has access to the same thing, and they won't. And I mean, governments, people, communities, different access is going to differentiate ultimately how we thrive as a society. So something to consider.
Yeah. Well, thank you so
Thank you.
much, Deacon
bless.
Dominick.
Yeah.
Yes, for being my guest.
It's always a
Once
pleasure.
again, yes, he was actually a guest with his wife in an earlier podcast. So if you want to check that
Yeah,
out, it's also
yeah.
on my YouTube channel. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. And to our wonderful audience, if you do have any questions or comments, please do leave them in the comment section. And I hope you have a wonderful morning, day, or night, wherever you are in the world. And God bless you. Bye-bye.